week after church, the bylaws committee got together for the extremely important yet terribly boring work of going over the bylaws, of trying to see where the church has come from and where we are going and how we can best facilitate that with the structure of the church. And in the middle of the meeting, Steve Fuller made a comment that made me smile. Actually, it did more than just that, because what Steve did is he referenced a line from one of my sermons, a sermon that I preached some time ago, like 2 years ago, maybe 3. And I can tell you that if you want to make a preacher happy, show that you are paying attention and that something has stuck with you. You see, we were discussing the way things used to be done here at King Street versus the way they are now, and talking about the future. And Steve said something like, I don't want anyone to think that I'm a member of the Back to Egypt committee, but back in the day we had, and he went on to fill in the blank. In referring to the Back to Egypt committee, Steve was of course referring to the way that churches, or at least groups within churches, like to look back to the glory days, to remember, to try and relive, to try and go back, instead of moving forward. He was talking about the way that people remember an idealized past that was never really as good as people remember it to be. Now, Steve couldn't have known it at the time, but the literal Back to Egypt committee figures prominently in today's reading from Exodus. That literal Back to Egypt committee were sick and tired of wandering in the desert on their way to a promised land that they had heard about but hadn't seen. They really didn't trust God's providence, and they didn't trust Moses' leadership. They complained about their camping spot, and they quarreled with Moses, demanding, "Give us water to drink," and badgering him. "Why did you bring us out of Egypt? To kill us and our children with thirst?" The Back to Egypt committee had worked themselves up into a lather and were ready to stone Moses, when God intervened and told Moses what to do. And so on God's instruction, he went ahead of the people to the foot of Mount Horeb, and he struck the rock with his staff. Water gushed out so that the people could drink. And Moses named the place Massa and Meribah, not naming it the place where God gave us water in the desert, but rather naming it the place where people tested and quarreled. And so the Back to Egypt committee went away until a more opportune time. In John's Gospel, it isn't the Back to Egypt committee that is looking for water, but Jesus himself, as he asks the Samaritan woman for a drink. He asks her for water, even though really you think that he should have known better. He was a Jew, and she was a Samaritan. That should have been enough for him to know. Jews and Samaritans didn't mix. You can almost imagine the water fountains and the restrooms clearly labeled with who was welcome and who was not. Well, which group was excluded. But Jesus, well, maybe he knew and didn't care. There was that whole racial and ethnic and religious thing that should have told him to keep moving. But there was another problem too. It was that whole gender thing. As a man, it was simply inappropriate for him to ask some strange woman to draw water for him. People might get the wrong idea, after all. Of course, there was that other thing that could have sent Jesus hurrying away from this woman. It was the middle of the day, with the sun scorching down, and here was this woman out all by herself, filling her water jug. Was she perhaps not bright enough to realize that her timing was poor? Was she maybe one of those folks for whom the elevator didn't go all the way to the top floor? Was there maybe something about her that made her unwelcome when the other women went to draw water in the cool of the day? Whatever it was, something was definitely wrong. But even though you or I would have been duly warned, Jesus didn't find his spider sense kingdom. Instead, he went up to the woman at the well and he asked her for a drink of water. And this woman, trying to do what society expected of her, tried to put him off, reminding him of the social conventions that should have kept him, a Jewish man, and her, a Samaritan woman, apart. But Jesus then gave her a theological riddle, telling her of the living water that he would give her, if only she would ask. Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink of the water that I will give them will never be thirsty. The water that I will give will become in them a spring of living water, gushing up to eternal life. And so the woman said to him, Sir, give me this water, so that I might never be thirsty or have to keep coming here in the heat of the day to draw water. Of course, it wasn't really about water at all. Just like Nicodemus from last week's gospel reading, who came to Jesus and heard all about being born from above, yet got it into his head that he had to be born a second time. This woman fixates on the imagery, and then she finds herself arguing messianic theology with Jesus. It isn't until she finally realizes who she's talking to that she runs off to tell the good news of this traveler who turned out to be the Savior of the world. Water is the gift of life. Whether to the Hebrews journeying through the desert, or to the woman at the Samaritan well. Though we take it for granted when we turn on the tap, water concerns us more than we think. Even as we speak this morning, there is a super bloom going on in the Californian Anza Borrego desert due to the unusually wet weather. The flowers that have lain dormant, some of them for as much as a century, are bursting into bloom. Last month, there was a mass evacuation in Oroville, California, and other communities along the Feather River due to the damage of the spillway and the emergency spillway of the Oroville dams. People were told to leave their houses for fear that the dam releases would no longer be controlled, that the towns would be flooded, homes destroyed, and lives lost. Right now, we're seeing the worst drought since 1945 in a dozen nations in East and Southern Africa, with millions of people whose lives are at risk due to famine. Rising sea levels threaten coastal regions around the globe. Native peoples and their allies for justice are opposing the Dakota Access Pipeline and working to protect tribal lands and water resources. Recent changes in federal policy have authorized coal mines to dump waste into streams. On Friday, the Environmental Protection Agency awarded $100 million to help rebuild the water infrastructure for Flint, Michigan. And the proposed federal budget for next year cuts funding for that same agency by 31%. It's all about water. But then again, it isn't just about water. That's the paradox of all of these stories, really. The Hebrews journeying through the desert thought it was all about the water, but it was really about the condition of their spirits. The woman at the well thought it was all about water, but what it really was about was tearing down walls and connecting with the gift of grace. We look at droughts and floods and poisoned drinking water and find that these are really calls for us to care for our planet and to work for justice for our neighbors. Water is life. We know this. It's something that we take for granted, like the children who said, yeah, we turn on the tap and it's always there for us. We take it for granted. But it's more than just that. Because we do indeed come together as people born of water and the Spirit. We come with our children to place water upon their heads as we give them the gift of baptism. Part of that sign and symbol of eternal life, that gift from Christ, who met the woman at the well and who gave her water that would never fail. Today, as we have celebrated Caden's baptism, we have once again repeated that ancient sacrament, offering that gift of living water. A gift to one child at this time, but a gift that touches all of us. May we then, as God's people, as those nourished by the presence of water in our spiritual deserts as a gift from God, may we, as people who have encountered the living Christ as living water in our spirits, take strength from that gift of baptism, from that water that has touched our heads and the heads of our children and grandchildren. May we be blessed as we journey through this desert of Lent, nourished by the gifts of God. Amen.